Hello. 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 Can you hear me? Hello. 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 Does that sound better? Yes, no, maybe. Hello. Does that sound better? Yes, no, maybe. Hello. Does that sound better? Yeah. Sound better? Yeah. Sound better? Much better. Stop the echo from happening. Much better. Stop the stop the Okay, so that's cool. That Hello? Yeah, you can hear me now. That should be way better. Way better. Don't hear my line. But people are going to have to talk up. Okay. Can you hear me? Put a two in the chat. Who is told person out. And Can you hear me? Hello? So you have to this level for everything to be picked up. Got it. Got it. You 7. You can hear me put a 7. Hey, hey, hey. Hey. Read something. Okay. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, all the heads of the chief of the fathers of the children, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of your city to Zion. All the men of Israel assembled at the feast in the month of Ethan, which is the 11th, 7th month. All the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the tabernacle, all the holy vessels, those of King Solomon, all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him, were with him for the ark, sacrificing sheep that cannot be told or numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, this place, King's Acre, into the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread forth the wings over, and the cherubims covered the ark, and they drew out the staves. The ends of the staves were seen in the holy place of the oracle, and they were not seen out. And there they are unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables of Moshe put there when Yahuwah made a covenant with the children of Israel, and they came out of the land of Mitzrayim. And it came to pass when the priests were come out of the holy place that the cloud filled the house of Yahuwah, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of Yahuwah had filled. Then spake Solomon. Yahuwah said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. I have surely built thee in a settled place for thee to abide in. And the king turned his face about and blessed all the congregation of Israel. And he said, Blessed be Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel. No. Why do you say that? Not. Yeah, bits and pieces. Sacrificing sheep. So it's brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah. This face into the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings. The cherubim spread forth the wings And the cherubims covered the ark, and drew out the staff. Let's start over. Okay, let's start over. Try this again. Then Solomon assembled. Try this again. Then Solomon assembled all the elders, the elders of Israel, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah out of the city of David, which is Zion. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month Ethanim, which is the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark. And they brought up the ark of Yahuwah and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. Even those did the priests and the Levites bring up. And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that cannot be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah unto his place, into the oracle of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark, and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out in the holy place before the oracle, and they were not seen without. And there they are unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the two tables of stone, which Moshe put there at Horeb, when Yahuwah made a covenant with the children of Israel, when they came out of the land of Mitzrayim. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place,
That's it. Skip it.
that the cloud filled the house of Yahuwah. I'm gonna finish reading it now, because this is the one that I said goes along with 2 Chronicles 7, and when we was talking about the actual prayer that he made in 2 Chronicles chapter 6, this is the one that goes along with it. So I'm gonna go read it. So the priest could not stand to minister, but so you can't hear the laptop at all. Okay.
And it's not fading in pause.
Yes. Because of the cloud, for the glory of Yahuwah had filled the house of Yahuwah. Then spake Solomon. Yahuwah said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. I have surely built thee an house to dwell in, settled place for thee to abide in forever. And the king turned his face about, and blessed all the congregation of Israel. And all the congregation of Israel stood. And he said, Blessed be Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel, which spake with his mouth unto Daoud, my father, and hath with his hand fulfilled it, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people Israel out of Mitzrayim, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Yasharal to build an house, that my name might be therein. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart or the mind of David, my father, to build an house for the name of Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel. And Yahuwah said unto Daoud, my father, Whereas it was in thy heart to build a house unto my name, thou didst well that it was in thine heart. Nevertheless, thou shalt not build the house, but thy sons that shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house unto my name. And Yahuwah hath performed his word that he spake, and I am risen up in the room of Daoud my father, and sit on the throne of Israel, as Yahuwah promised, and have built a house for the name of Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel. And I have set there a place for the ark, wherein is the covenant of Yahuwah, which he made with our fathers when he brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Solomon stood before the altar of Yahuwah, in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands toward heaven. And he said, Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, there is no Elohim like thee, in heaven above or on earth beneath, who keepest covenant and mercy with thy servants that walk before thee with all their heart, with all their mind, who hast kept with thy servant Daud my father, that thou promised him. Thou spakest also with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. Therefore now, Yahuwah, Elohim of Israel, keep with thy servant Daud my father, that thou promised him, saying, there shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit on the throne of Israel, so that thy children take heed to their way, that they walk before me as thou hast walked before me. And now, O Elohim of Israel, let thy word, I pray thee, be verified, which thou spakest unto thy servant Daud my father. But will Elohim indeed dwell on the earth? Yes, he will. Behold, the heaven and heavens of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded? Yet have thou respect unto the prayer of thy servant, and to his supplication. O Yahuwah my Elohim, to hearken unto the cry and to the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee today, that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place. And hearken thou to the supplication of thy servant and of thy people Israel, when they shall pray toward this place, towards Jerusalem. And hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, when thou hearest forgive, and when thou hearest forgive. If any man trespass against his neighbor, and an oath be laid upon him to cause him to swear, and the oath come before thine altar in this house, then hear thou in heaven, and do, and judge thy servants, condemning the wicked, to bring his way upon his head, and justifying the righteous, to give him according to his righteousness. When thy people Israel be smitten down before the enemy, because they knew it was going to happen, because they have sinned against thee, and shall turn again to thee, and confess thy name, thy authority, and pray, and make supplication unto thee in this house, then hear thou in heaven, and forgive the sin of thy people, and bring them again unto the land which thou gavest unto their fathers. So they already knew that they were going to be scattered, but they're still supposed to pray towards Jerusalem. When heaven is shut up, and there is no rain, because they have sinned against thee, if they pray toward this place, towards Jerusalem, and confess thy name, and turn from their sin, when thou afflictest them, then hear thou in heaven, and forgive the sin of thy servants, and of thy people Israel, that thou teach them the good way wherein they should walk, and give rain upon thy land, which thou hast given to thy people for an inheritance. If there be in the land famine, if there be pestilence, blasting, mildew, locust, or if there be caterpillar, if their enemy besiege them in the land of their cities, whatsoever plague, whatsoever sickness there be, what prayer and supplication soever be made by any man, or by all thy people, which shall know every man the plague of his own heart, his own mind. So that means they're not making what? They're not making excuses. They are confessing their sins, their iniquities. And spread forth his hands toward this house, towards Jerusalem. Then hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive, and do, and give to every man according to his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou, even thou only, knowest the hearts of all the children of men, that they may fear thee all the days that they live in the land which thou gavest unto our fathers. Moreover, concerning a stranger, this is something the camps don't like to hear, that is not of thy people Israel, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake. So these are not Israelites. They are not. For they shall hear of thy great name, and of thy stronghold, strong hand, and of thy stretched out arm, when he shall come and pray towards this house. Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee, as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I have built is called by thy name. If thy people go out to battle against their enemy, whithersoever thou shalt send them, and shall pray unto Yahuwah toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house that I have built for thy name, then hear thou in Shamaim their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. If they sin against thee, for there is no man that sinneth not, and thou be angry with them, and deliver them to the enemy, so that they carry them away captives unto the land of the enemy, far or near. We're supposed to be praying towards Jerusalem while we're in captivity. Just saying. Can't always do it, but whenever you're supplicating up to the Most High, sending up that supplication, to be towards Jerusalem. Yet if they shall bethink themselves in the land whither they were carried captives, which is where we are now, and repent or turn away from, and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried captive, that carried them captive, saying, we have sinned and have done perversely, we have committed wickedness. That is the order. That's what we're supposed to be doing right now. Towards Jerusalem, not making excuses, being honest, being naked, as Adam and Eve was before they fell, because that's exactly what they didn't do. They were already in the Garden of Pleasure or the Garden of Eden, and instead of immediately repenting, they tried to do what? They tried to cover their shame. They tried to hide it, conceal it. But the Most High's like, nah, pray towards Jerusalem. Don't make excuses. Admit it. Confess that thing out so it doesn't have dominion or power over you, because we have got to focus on regaining the sound mind. We have sinned and have done perversely. We have committed wickedness. And so return unto thee with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their enemies, which is where we are now, which led them away captive, and pray unto thee toward their land, which thou gavest unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name. Then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in Shamaim, thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause. And forgive thy people that have sinned against thee, and all their transgressions wherein they have transgressed against thee, and give them compassion before them who carry them captive, that they may have compassion on them. For they be thy people and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest forth out of Mitzrayim, from the midst of the furnace of iron. Everyone has to go through the furnace of iron. That's life. But who can go through the water? Who's brave enough? That thine eyes may be open unto the supplication of thy servant, and unto the supplication of thy people Israel, to hearken unto them in all that they call for unto thee. For thou didst separate them from among all the people of the earth, to be thine inheritance, as thou spakest by the hand of Moshe thy servant, when thou broughtest our fathers out of Mitzrayim, O Yahuwah Elohim. And it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying, all this prayer and supplication unto Yahuwah, he arose from before the altar of Yahuwah, from kneeling on his knees, with his hands spread up to the Shaman. And he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying, Blessed be Yahuwah, that have given rest unto his people, according to all that he promised. There have not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moshe, his servant. Yahuwah our Elohim be with us, as he was with our fathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us, that he may incline our hearts unto him, to walk in all his ways. and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, which he commanded our fathers. So him inclining us is to be obedient, better than any sacrifice that we can make. And let these words, wherewith I have made supplication before Yahuwah, be nigh unto Yahuwah, our Elohim, day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant, and the cause of his people Israel at all times, as the matter shall require, at all times, at all times, that all the people of the earth may know that Yahuwah is Elohim, and that there is none else. Let your heart therefore be perfect with Yahuwah, our Elohim, to walk in his statutes, and to keep his commandments, as at this day. And the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifice before Yahuwah. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto Yahuwah, and 220,000 oxen, and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of Yahuwah. The same day did the king hallow the middle of the court that was before the house of Yahuwah, for there he offered burnt offerings and meat offerings, and the fat of the peace offerings, because the brazen altar that was before Yahuwah was too little to receive the burnt offerings and meat offerings, and the fat of the peace offerings. And at that time Solomon held a feast, and all Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Mitzrayim, before Yahuwah our Elohim, 7 days and 7 days, even 14 days. On the 8th day, the new beginning, he sent the people away, and they blessed the king, and went unto their tents joyfully, and glad of heart, for all the goodness that Yahuwah had done for David his servant, and for Israel, his people. I'm going to read this one too. Might as well. Might as well. Might as well. Yeah, let's read this one. 1 Kings 9. And it came to pass, when Solomon had finished the building of the house of Yahuwah, the king's house, and all Solomon's desires which he was pleased to do, that Yahuwah appeared to Solomon the second time, as he had appeared unto him at Gibeon. And Yahuwah said unto him, I have heard thy prayer and thy supplication, that thou hast made before me. I have hallowed this place in your part, which thou hast built, to put my name there forever, and mine eyes and mine heart shall be there perpetually. And if thou wilt walk before me as David my father walked, as David thy father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded thee, and will keep my statutes and my judgments, then I will establish the throne of thy kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised David, David thy father, saying, there shall not fail thee a man upon the throne of Israel. But if you shall at all turn from following me, you or your children, and will not keep my commandments and my statutes which I have set before you, but go and serve other Elohim and worship them, so he's giving them an ultimatum or a warning, then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, and this house which I have hallowed for my name will I cast out of my sight. And Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. That's the current state of Israel now. And at this house, which is high, every one that passeth by it shall be astonished, and shall hiss. And they shall say, why hath Yahuwah done thus unto this land and to this house? And they shall answer, because they forsook Yahuwah their Elohim, who brought forth their fathers out of the land of Mitzrayim, land of bondage, and have taken hold upon other Elohim, and have worshipped them and served them. Therefore have Yahuwah brought upon them all this evil. And it came to pass at the end of 20 years, when Solomon had built the two houses, the house of Yahuwah and the king's house. Now Hiram, the king of Tyre, had furnished Solomon with cedar trees and fir trees, and with gold, according to all his desire. That then King Solomon gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. And Hiram came out from Tyre to see the cities which Solomon had given him, and they pleased him not. And he said, What cities are these which thou hast given me, my brother? And he called them the land of Kabul unto this day. And Hiram sent to the king 60 talents of gold. And this is the reason of the levy which King Solomon raised, for to build the house of Yahuwah and his own house, and Milo, and the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazor, and Megiddo, and Gezer. For Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had gone up and taken Gezer, and burnt it with fire, and slain the Canaanites that dwelt in the city, and given it for a present unto his daughter, Solomon's wife. And Solomon built Gezer and Beth Horon, the nether, and Baalath, and Tadmor, and the wilderness in the land, and all the cities of store that Solomon had, and cities for his chariots, and cities for his horsemen, and that which Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, and in Lebanon, and in all the land of his dominion. And all the people that were left of the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, which were not of the children of Israel, their children that were left after them in the land, whom the children of Israel also were not able utterly to destroy, upon those did Solomon levy a tribute of bondservice unto this day. But of the children of Israel did Solomon make no bondmen, but they were men of war, not weak priests and pastors, men of war, and his servants and his princes and his captains and rulers of his chariots and his horses. These were the chief of the officers that were over Solomon's work, 550, which bare rule over the people that brought in the word. But Pharaoh's daughter came up out of the city of David unto her house, which Solomon had built for her. Then did he build Milo. And 3 times in a year did Solomon offer burnt offerings and peace offerings upon the altar which he built unto Yahuwah. And he burnt incense upon the altar that was before Yahuwah. So he finished the house. And King Solomon made a navy of ships. What do you think the military got the name from? A navy of ships in Ezion Geber, which is beside Eloth, on the shore of the Reed Sea, in the land of Esau. And Hiram sent in the navy his servants, shipmen that had knowledge of the sea, with the servants of Solomon. They came to Ophir and fetched from thence gold 420 talents, and brought it to King Shalom. Shalom, shalom.